All right, Lance. So you're the founder. You're the man that started this whole thing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a story, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. But I started Waterloo in 2021, and I'd actually had prior turf experience going back to 2016. So I actually graduated from college in 2016, didn't have a job, thought I wanted to get into commercial real estate or something in that kind of sphere. And so I had a buddy at the time that, he had asked me, "Do you want to start up a turf company?" And so I ended up actually ditching the real estate thing, started up a turf company separately in 2016, ran that until 2018. And then I kind of just got lured into the corporate life. So I saw all my buddies out there traveling, going to different events, things of that nature. And I kind of just,
Hmm.
for lack of a better phrase, grass is greener situation. And I went into the corporate world. So I actually left my ownership with that previous turf company, went to the medical device space for about 2 years. And I
Okay.
quickly realized that being your own boss is a lot more fun than having a boss, and reporting to doctors and going into operating rooms and all that good stuff. So in 2021, I actually came back to the turf world and quit my steady medical device job. I started Waterloo Turf the same month me and my wife got married, which wouldn't necessarily recommend that to a lot of people. The honeymoon phase may have not lasted as long as it could have, but my wife was super supportive and things have worked out pretty good since then.
Wow, Lance, that's awesome. Well, actually, you and I have a lot in common. I was in medical device sales too before I got started way
Nice.
back in the 90s. And my wife too was extremely supportive when I started out the business, despite how scary it is, right?
Yeah.
When we leave a great career. And it sounds like similar to you, I didn't have passion in that business.
No, yeah, it's funny, a lot of the potential franchisees that we've been talking to, there's a decent amount of them that are in that medical device space. I think you and I both know the reason for people wanting to opt out of it after a certain point. But no, I mean, I totally agree. I do think that for you to be as successful as you can be as a business owner, as a franchisee, having a supportive spouse is the key to that. So making sure if you're somebody that's in a serious relationship or married, making sure that your partner is on the same page with you is extremely important before you go into a big endeavor like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've come across so many franchise owners as I develop my business, and I would say one of probably the most obvious clue that someone was going to be successful or have great difficulty was how much the kind of support that they got from spouse, partner, family, friends, whatever. Because if you've got people that are rallying around you and supportive, you can get through
Oh
anything.
yeah.
And at the same time, I noticed this with franchisees where like the husband was all in and the wife was not all in. And as soon as he got into trouble, it was, I told you so. I knew this was going to be a challenge, but every business is a
Yeah.
challenge. It's not success is not a straight line up.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, at the end of the day, you are becoming your own business owner. So you're bringing your
Hmm.
business home too, and you got to make sure that your spouse is on the same page with you and is fighting for you, is supporting you, being your cheerleader. Because a lot of conversations will end up being about your business.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's bring Tim into this. So how does Tim come into your company? How do you guys find each other?
Yeah, I mean, so Tim and I, we met kind of at a point in time where I was trying to figure out where I wanted to take Waterloo next. So obviously, started Waterloo in 2021, and then at the beginning of 2024, I expanded Waterloo to San Antonio. So about an hour or so outside of Austin. Hired a general manager there, and he got up and running pretty quick to the point where I haven't been to San Antonio in well over a year at this point. And so, anyways, that was the beginning of 2024. And then in about May or so of 2024, I was trying to figure out, do I want to continue to expand Waterloo corporately and just go
Hmm.
city to city to city, or do I want to go the franchising route? Something I had just kind of been interested in, but didn't have a lot of prior knowledge or obviously experience with. Um, and so it was kind of Tim and I met at this really pivotal moment in me trying to figure out where I wanted to go with the company. And so we actually met through church. Him and his wife were in a small group with me and my wife, and for the first couple months, we just kind of didn't talk about business. It was more of just like getting to know each other, becoming friends. And then there was one evening we were at a pub, us and a couple other couples, and having a couple.
Why is it always a pub?
Yeah,
It's always in a
gotta,
pub.
there's got to be a pub involved somewhere, right? For it to be a real.
It's where all the best ideas happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
the back of a napkin.
Exactly. We were out and just kind of like, yeah, so what do you do for work type of situation. That conversation came up, and I was telling Timmy that I own a turf company and this and that, and I was asking what he does, and he was in the franchising space, but he was like, I've been interested in the turf company or turf space for a while. And I kind of thought he was just like blowing smoke, just like making conversation, but turns out he actually was interested in turf. And so we just kind of talked a little bit more about the expansion of Waterloo and bringing it into the franchising space, and conversations continued. And obviously it ended up with us being here where we are now, and us kind of joining teams and really bringing Waterloo Turf into the franchising space.
Wow. All right, Tim. So tell me about your franchise background. Where did you cut your teeth into franchising?
I was an operations executive at a home services franchise platform. So really my responsibility there was running the launching team, some of the coaching teams, brand marketing, a lot of the things that would happen after somebody would sign on as a franchise owner with us, and really enjoyed the franchising space. You know, I just love the idea of people coming out of the corporate world and looking to just kind of build their own journey, and you give them the roadmap to get there. And I just love the space. It was really the first time that I had been involved with franchising, but just fell in love with it. And as I started to fall in love with the franchising space, that's when I got interested in turf. I started to see some other brands popping up in home services and being a part of some as well. And, you know, in Austin, turf is just such a huge part of a lot of people's lives here and a lot of people's homes here. And you started to look at the turf space nationally. There's not another national brand name, and there's not really another national franchising company that's associated with artificial turf. And as I started to dig deeper in the industry, I just was shocked that nobody had franchised in turf before. It's got simple operations. It's a huge industry. It's booming. It doesn't require high skilled labor. Really, a lot of the things that you're looking for before you go franchise a company, artificial turf had.
Sure.
And so I started to look at artificial turf companies to franchise for about a year. And that's when Lance and I met. And so when we were at that pub and started to talk about work a little bit more, it just felt like the stars aligned.
Wow. And specifically, what excited you about working with Lance and Waterloo? Like, was there something about this company that you knew this was the right fit?
I had looked at a bunch of turf companies to franchise before this. Had talked with quite a few other artificial turf company owners who were thinking about franchising, and it never checked all of my boxes. I ended up passing on a few companies to go franchise, and I really think it was the right decision. You know, there's companies out there that show good revenue. They've got great operations, but what was different with Lance and Waterloo is as I started to talk with Lance, I think two things really kind of came to the top. Number one, you know, Lance has the story that you just heard about how he became a business owner. He had a job, he left it, was able to get his time freedom back and his financial freedom back. And Lance is really motivated to go give other people that. You know, when Lance and I talked about franchising Waterloo Turf, it wasn't about, oh, I want to go make as much money in franchising as possible. It's how do I give people the life that I have and take that nationally? And so Lance just really believed in a lot of the same things about franchising that I believed in. And the second thing is that Lance is a turf guy. You know, he came into turf straight out of college. It's really kind of the thing that he knows best. And as you start to look at the turf industry, this is not roofing. This is not painting. It's not restoration. Really, the industry has not been around that long. Lance is one of the longer tenured guys in turf that you can find. And so just the knowledge that he had in turf and bringing that into our system, it was different than some other people that I talked with who maybe, you know, they went out and acquired a turf company. They had more of a private equity or finance background or had more of a sales background and worked their way up to owning a turf company. He just really was born in the operations, and I knew that would benefit our franchise owners long term to have that.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.